So there seems to be a lot of confusion about what's going on with Marvel's new Ultimate Universe. So in this video, we're going to clear all this up. So one of the first things that we have to talk about here is the Maker. We're not going to go into the full history of his character. I already have a video for that, and you'll find that along with other videos that I mentioned down in the description. But the long and short of the Maker's story, as you may or may not know, is that he is the version of Reed Richards from the original Ultimate Universe, known as Earth 1610. Now in that universe, the Maker did not originally start off as a villain. Instead, he just started off as Reed, who was essentially a boy genius. Over the course of the original Fantastic Four run, he starts to display these traits that indicate he's becoming a villain, so much so that he basically alienates his own family. Now, him actually turning into a villain takes place in a story called Ultimate Mystery Trilogy, when an attack is launched against various superheroes, but specifically Susan, Johnny, Ben, and seemingly Reed himself. At the end of the story, you find out it was actually Reed launching the attack. He is, of course, defeated, and in Jonathan Hickman's run of the Ultimates, he returns as the Maker in the full garb and the helmet and everything you think of when you think of his character. Now, the reason why the Maker is so important here is because he is essentially the engineer of the new Ultimate Universe in Marvel. And the way this played out is that, as a lot of you guys know, Jonathan Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers run was the story that detailed the collapse of the multiverse going into Secret Wars 2015. The last two universes to collide were the original Ultimate Universe and the main Marvel Universe. The Maker was one of a handful of individuals who survived the collapse of the multiverse and ended up on Battleworld. Now, at the end of the whole Secret Wars 2015 story, it essentially seemed as though the Maker's fate was sealed, and his character was being written out of Marvel, never to be seen or heard from again. All that changed in the aftermath of Secret Wars and what was called All New, All Different Marvel. Again, this is detailed in the video that we made about Reed. The long and short of that is that he basically returns. There's some shenanigans where his mind exists in every reality and he creates different bodies for himself and so on and so forth. But as it pertains to what's happening with the new Ultimate Universe, there comes a point when the Maker is essentially locked up, and using his intelligence along with various brainwashing techniques, he essentially escapes imprisonment in the main Marvel Universe. Then he travels to the Baxter Building where the Fantastic Four reside and grabs a whole bunch of information that essentially is a kind of roadmap of the timeline of the main Marvel Universe. Everything that ever has happened and everything that most likely will happen. And then he takes all that information and hunts through the multiverse and finds a reality that's almost identical to the main Marvel Universe known as Earth 616. This new universe that he finds is designated Earth 616-0. And so because this universe is so similar to the main Marvel Universe, he takes this roadmap of reality to that new universe and then starts making changes in the time stream. Now, it is important to specify here, we do not know the full totality of the changes that he's made. And in fact, that's a major plot point of what's happening in the Ultimate Universe right now. I'll talk about what that means here in a second, but to give you some idea of these changes that he did make that we are aware of, he had prevented the radioactive spider from biting Peter Parker. So Peter Parker never becomes Spider-Man. He had prevented the discovery of Captain America after World War II, so Captain America never forms the Avengers. The Avengers never come into existence in any real capacity at all. He helps Loki defeat Thor and kill Odin, seizing control of Asgard for himself, that he seemingly kills the original Victor Von Doom in the Ultimate Universe. And for those of you guys who were curious about what that means, because you may be aware that Doctor Doom does exist in this new Ultimate Universe, that's actually Reed Richards in Earth 6160, because what the Maker had done is he had gone to the various calculations that this reality's Reed was making when they were supposed to take off and the Fantastic Four would gain their powers due to, cosmic energies bombarding them and whatnot. And the Maker had changed these calculations so that when the mission was originally undertaken, everything went sideways like that. And so Johnny Storm actually dies on the mission. The Maker seemingly kills Ben Grimm, although the whole thing is framed as a kind of suicide, and Susan Storm ends up dying not too long after. After that, Reed Richards is taken by the Maker to what's basically a room where time passes differently, meaning if we use arbitrary numbers here, a year in that room would be like a day in the real world. I don't recall that we're given like an actual frame, right? An actual amount of time that passes in the room relative to the real world. But basically what ends up happening is that the Maker tortures Reed. He physically mutilates this guy due to his ability to stretch by warping his face to disfigure him and then putting the Dr. Doom mask over his face. He also conditions him, both psychologically as well as surgically, into believing that he is actually Dr. Doom. Now, it's really him adopting the name Doom just because of the fact that the Maker convinces him everything he touches dies. He brings doom everywhere he goes. So the name is as much metaphorical as it is literal. And so that's how you end up getting Doom in this new Ultimate Universe. It's one of the most tragic parts of everything that goes on in this new reality. Not only that, there were two other major tasks that the Maker had undertaken. The first one was forming essentially the Illuminati. Now, it's not really the Illuminati like you see in the main Marvel Universe, where it's Professor Xavier and Namor the Submariner and Black Bolt and Black Panther and so on and so forth, where they kind of share information to protect the world from various threats. This Illuminati created by the Maker was actually predicated on the idea that humanity cannot find peace inherently. And so what he ended up doing was using this Illuminati to control the world by inciting false skirmishes, that each of the 7 members of the Illuminati would control one portion of the world, and they would wage these fake wars against each other by inciting fake conflicts, because humanity needs conflict as well as peace in order to coexist with any measure of longevity. The way the Maker realized this was the case was traveling through the time stream into the future. This is the second thing that happened. When the Maker did that, he ended up encountering this new universe's version of Kang the Conqueror. A fight ensued, Kang the Conqueror attacked the Maker, he almost killed him, and then he literally tore a chunk out of his brain that had information about something called the Immortus engine, which was the time travel device that the Maker had been using to jump back and forth through time and make changes to this time stream. And so what the Maker does is he enlists the aid of Howard Stark. Now, Howard Stark was one half of a company called Stark Stain. As you can probably guess, Obadiah Stane owned the other half. The idea behind Howard Stark was that he was supposed to basically fix the Immortus engine alongside Dr. Doom for the Maker. But once Howard Stark begins to realize what's going on, that the Maker has the Illuminati, the world's being secretly controlled, so on and so forth, that the Maker and Dr. Doom actually concoct this plan to destroy the Maker. And what ends up happening is that a massive fight breaks out between Kang the Conqueror, who had sent his forces to the present day, and the forces of the Maker. During this massive fight, a kind of event is triggered, which is to say that the city that they were in, which was created by the Maker within what used to be Latveria, effectively shuts. It's like a giant dome that closes. And that's where the Maker, Howard Stark, and Kang the Conqueror currently reside. Now, a major focal point of the Ultimate Universe right now is that we don't know what's going on inside that dome. We do currently get some teasers. For example, when the Guardians of the Galaxy come from the future into the present day and they meet with the Ultimates, which I'll talk about here in a second, that they warn the Ultimates when the dome opens, everyone's going to die. Right? So it almost seems as though the fate of the various superheroes is sealed. There's no way they can win. And one of the cool things that goes on is that we're actually counting down to the point when the dome opens in real time. So I don't remember how much time we have left off the top of my head, but if the newest issue of the Ultimates comes out right now and it says in 6 months the dome opens, it means 6 months from today in real world time, that comic will come out and the dome will open up. It's one of the coolest elements of what's happening in the Ultimates right now. The other part of this is that during the gigantic conflict between the Maker and Howard Stark and Dr. Doom and Kang the Conqueror and so on and so forth, the Illuminati had used one of Howard Stark's satellites to fire a shot at Osborn Industries. This completely obliterated the place. And what it did is it basically left Tony Stark as a kind of public enemy number 1 type person. Now, this is an important thing to understand. Within this Ultimate Universe, Tony Stark never became Iron Man. It was Howard Stark who became Iron Man. We don't know exactly how long he had been operating that way. We know that he prevented the assassination of JFK, but that's really about it. And so when Howard Stark is presumed dead, albeit trapped inside the city, that Tony Stark ends up becoming the new Iron Man. But he and Dr. Doom flee into the time stream using the Immortus engine, and they reside there right? They just kind of are out there in the future. What Tony Stark ended up doing was realizing that because of all the changes that the Maker made, this universe isn't the way that it's supposed to be. And so what Tony started doing was building these almost kind of gift boxes, for lack of a better word, that he would fire off into the time stream that would be sent to various individuals to almost kind of fast track them becoming the heroes that they were supposed to be. So for example, in the case of Peter Parker is given a Picotech suit, and he's given the radioactive spider that was supposed to bite him. And he's told by Tony through a hologram, you need to let that spider bite you, and then you will become a superhero, which of course Peter does, and he becomes the Ultimate Universe Spider-Man. Tony Stark also goes, finds Captain America, thaws him out. He goes and I wouldn't say frees Thor, he actually just kind of helps Thor escape. And what you see right now is actually Sif, who is hunting Thor on behalf of Loki, and Sif is currently part of the new Ultimates. And that's the other thing that Tony did. When all these various heroes, outside of really Spider-Man more than anybody else, were essentially created by Tony, Tony brought them on board as the Ultimates, which is basically this Ultimate Universe's version of the Avengers. And for the most part, what he's working to do is to try to find a way to defeat the Maker when the Maker emerges from the city alongside his father and alongside Kang. And so having said all of that, if what you're looking to do is to actually jump into the Ultimate Universe and follow everything that's going on, which book you choose depends on what you're interested in. If what you want to do is just follow the story of Peter Parker as this new Ultimate Spider-Man, essentially in isolation from everything else that's going on, it's the Ultimate Spider-Man comic. That comic doesn't really tie into the greater story of what's happening with regards to the Maker and Kang and Howard emerging from the dome. It just follows the story of Peter as he's become Spider-Man and is learning how to balance both a superhero life and his family life. If what you're looking to do is to get into the X-Men, there's actually a couple options here. The first one is Ultimate X-Men, which by all standards of measurement is really what you or I would refer to as the New Mutants in Marvel Comics. There isn't really a main X-Men book that focuses on the main X-Men team because that team doesn't exist. The Colossus, his sister Magic, Omega Red, they actually rule a section of Eurasia. They're essentially villains here. You find that out in Ultimate Wolverine. That follows the story of Wolverine in this new universe, which actually focuses on Wolverine as the Winter Soldier. That comic's relatively new. The first story arc just finished, so you're really not that far behind. But if what you're looking to do is follow the narrative of the bigger picture, everything that's happening with regards to Kang and the Maker and Howard Stark and the countdown until the dome opens, that's the Ultimate comic. Now, if you're a fan of Black Panther, there's a book for that as well. But Black Panther is also, much like Peter Parker, seemingly removed from everything else that's going on. And so a lot of this is still very new stuff. This universe is still very much being built. None of the comics are past like issue number 20 yet, or anything like that. So again, you're not that far behind. Of course, Ultimate Invasion issues 1 through 4, and then Ultimate Universe number 1 are must reads to understand what's happening here. After that, it's pick your poison. So with that being said, guys, hopefully this video helps you out, gives you a better understanding of where to start and everything that's happening. Let me know if you have any questions down in the comments section. I'll answer them as best I can. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all later. Peace.